2.5 Day 1 notes, we're going to be solving rational functions, and the word rational just means fraction in math. So if you look through these, we're going to work these two together, we're going to work these two together, and we'll talk about this last one here in a moment. First of all, if you notice, there are two terms right here set equal to 0. 0 means no term at all. This is also two terms. When there's only two terms here, we can solve this like a proportion. And some of you guys might remember this being called like the butterfly method. We're actually going to crisscross and multiply these. Down here, these have a total of 3 terms. 1, 2, 3. Same with this down here. This has 3 terms. These 3 terms have to be solved by the least common denominator. We're still going to be multiplying, but multiplying is going to look different down here at the bottom than it does at the top. Also, remember, since you have a fraction and you have x below a fraction bar, you are going to have to do restrictions. And sometimes your restrictions is going to be what you're going to solve for x. When you solve for x and you end up with a restriction, that is an extraneous solution, and we do not want extraneous solutions, so we're going to have to make sure we mark any extraneous solutions in our final answer. All right, here we go. Let's start with problem A. So for problem A, it's 2 terms. I'm going to solve it like a proportion, but before I begin, I want to remind myself that x cannot equal a -3. Big no on that. All right, here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the -4 over. It's going to turn positive. So we're going to have 20 over x plus 3, excuse me, equals a +4. Remember that 4 is a whole number. It's like over 1. And now let's go ahead and proceed with that awesome butterfly method. We're going to do 20 times 1, put it over here on the right side of the equal sign. Of course, that's just 20. We're going to do 4 times x plus 3. We're just going to distribute this 4 to both of these right here. So over on the left, let's write 4x plus 12. And then there you go. You have just a baby junior high level equation. Let's go ahead and solve for x. We're going to move the 12 over. 4x is going to equal just 8. So we know x equals 2. And 2, if you notice, I put some space right here on purpose. If you notice, 2 is not a restriction, so 2 is not an extraneous answer. So we're going to put that in the good group. So those are called braces. And most of the time for us in math class, good answers go in braces. If we end up getting an answer that's also a restriction, we're going to denote those bad extraneous answers in parentheses. So good answers that we want to keep go here. Bad answers that are also in the denominator as a restriction go in parentheses. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at letter B. Letter B is set up perfectly. I don't have to move anything. But what I do need to remind myself is that x cannot equal 2. All right, here we go. We're going to do this whole crisscross butterfly method. We're going to do 9x times 1, which of course is 9x. The 6 is going to get distributed to the x and the -2. So this is going to be 6x minus 12. So when we have 2 variables on both sides, I always move the lowest letter. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. That's going to be 3x equals a -12. So of course x is going to equal a 4. And that's great. That's not a restriction. So just going to remind myself that that is a good answer there. All right, so remember, when you have 2 terms, you always use a proportion. That's the easiest way to knock this out when you have 2 terms in total in the entire problem. All right, so on the bottom, if you notice there's 3 terms, we're going to multiply everything by the LCD, and it's all going to get wiped out once we multiply the whole entire equation by the LCD. But before we do that, you always have to state restrictions. So I know x cannot equal a +2. It also cannot equal a 4. And I have no idea about this, so I have to factor. Always factor your denominators. So when we factor this, this is going to be x minus 4, and x minus 2. So I do already have those restrictions. That's great. In fact, factoring your denominator is so important, guys. We're going to go ahead and rewrite this in factored form. So I'm just going to copy the left side in factored form, but the right side of the equal sign, I'm copying exactly how it was because it was already factored. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put brackets around the entire equation because remember, we're going to be multiplying by the LCD. So we're going to multiply both sides by the least common denominator, which are each of these factors. So let's write x minus 4, x minus 2 on both sides. X minus 4, x minus 2. Now remember, when you distribute, when it's a fraction, when you distribute stuff, whatever you distribute goes on top of the fraction bar. So once this stuff is distributed, this is what it's going to look like. Remember, it goes on top of the fraction bar. Just going to recopy the denominator. All right, and remember you have two terms here, so these go to both of those terms. So over here on the left, I'm sorry, on the right, let me just copy what that's going to look like. Just going to recopy those denominators how they already were. Okay, guys. These are going to cancel out. That's a form of 1. X over 4, x minus 4 over x minus 4 is a form of 1. That cancels out. Same with the x minus 2s. Those cancel out. So that's just going to leave a 4 over here. On the other side, the x minus 2s cancel out. That's going to leave a 3x times x minus 4. I'm going to have to distribute that later, but let's go ahead and look over here. The x minus 4s cancel out. Remember, that's a positive 2. So plus 2 times x minus 2. All right, we're almost there, but remember, just like you can't solve x in a denominator, you can never solve for x when they're in parentheses. So we're going to have to distribute and combine like terms. So we're going to get 4 equals 3x squared minus 12x plus 2x minus 4. Now remember, when you have a polynomial with a high degree, you got to set them equal to 0. So minus 4 on both sides. So 3x squared minus 12x plus 2x minus 4 is going to be minus 8. Let me go ahead and clean up these linear terms, these like terms. All right, so we're going to try to factor 3x squared minus 10x minus 8. That is certainly factorable. All right, here we go. So 3 times negative 8 is a negative 24. We want factors that add up to a negative 10. So a negative 12 times a positive 2 is going to make it a negative 24 and also combine to make a negative 10. Let's divide by the a value. So our factors are going to be x minus 4. And then this is going to be 3x plus 2. So x is going to equal a 4 and a negative 2/3. And look over here. So you got a bad answer, guys. Always check. You will get bad answers. They happen pretty often. So go ahead and put that in the bad answer group, which is parentheses. And your negative 2/3 is a good answer. And put that in the braces. All right, the next one we're going to look at is going to be letter E. Obviously, I've run out of room. I'm going to copy that on the back side real quick. All right, so I've copied it on the back. Remember, if you did not have room to write this, then you're writing this on a separate sheet. Here we go. So remember, I do want to state restrictions. I know x cannot equal a negative 6. I know x cannot equal 0. Let me go ahead and factor this to figure out what this side has restrictions of. Now remember, it's only 2 terms. All 2 terms are just GCF problems. So this turns into x and then x plus 6, which exactly matches this. So I already have my restrictions taken care of. All right, I'm just going to draw a bubble around that because it's super important, but now I'm going to go ahead and start solving the problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this in factored form. And we're going to multiply the whole entire equation by the LCD. And the LCD are just the 2 factors that are in below the denominator. So it's going to be x times x plus 6. When I take these and multiply it over here, the whole entire denominator is going to wipe out all of this. So the left side of my equal sign is just going to be negative 12. Now over here, when I distribute, just the x plus 6's are going to go away. The whole entire fraction bar is going to go away also. So when the x plus 6's completely cancel, this first term just turns into 2x. Now over here, the x's are going to cancel, and the fraction bar. The fraction bar is going to go away also. But what we're going to be left with is x minus 2 times x plus 6. All right, it is time for us to go ahead and FOIL. Let's see what's going to happen here. That is going to be plus 4x minus 12. Just want to double check that I did my FOILing correctly. Pretty sure I did that. All right, so it is going to be a power of 2, so negative 12 equals x squared. Now look, I have some linear terms to combine here, so let's write plus 6x. Go ahead and recopy the minus 12. We're going to add 12 to both sides to set it equal to 0. So 0 is going to equal x squared plus 6x. Those wipe out completely also. So remember, GCF problem when it's just 2 terms, they both have an x. Look, you are getting answers that are exactly the denominator. Neither one of those are good answers, remember, because we had x cannot be negative 6, which is this, and it also cannot equal 0. So when you get an answer and all of them are the restrictions, it's just no solution. All that work that we just showed for no solution. Okay, so if you could please, this is going to be yours. Please work this and show me, and then that's going to be it for today's lesson.